Recently, a parishioner told me a memory she had from an Advent about 30 years ago. She said it was the worst December of her life up until that time. Her brother, who she loved very much and who lived out of state, had been diagnosed with a life-threatening condition, and so she, a dutiful younger sister, decided to take a leave of absence from her work so she could go out of state and help take care of him. He lived in a really rural place, and so she was completely isolated there and had none of the nice Glens Falls holiday rituals and traditions that she loved. It was her first time ever not being home for those, and she said she didn't feel like she was in the mood at all. Everything just felt hard. She said that she had gone to the town 25 miles away to get some provisions, and she was on her way back to her brother's house. And as she was going down this incline, she could see that there was an old car, she said it was a Chevy Vega, was down at a crossroad at the bottom of the hill. And so she thought, oh, they're gonna go. They're probably gonna go. They're gonna go. And then she realized, well, they're probably not going. So she resumed her speed, and then they pulled out right in front of her. And she said that car was going 10 miles below the speed she'd been traveling, and it traveled the whole way she was going. And it was halfway to her brother's house, she realized that the bumper sticker on the back in all caps said, "Don't postpone joy." She said that car drove slowly in front of her, mustard yellow Vega, she said, and turned off 2 driveways before her brother's. And she said, all right, God, you don't need to hit me over the head. I see that you're trying to give me a message. We can't postpone joy because life is going to give us excuses to be unhappy. Life is going to give you tons of excuses. This is not heaven. We're not in heaven. So there's always something out of place. Something's always a little bit off. But this weekend, the message that we're supposed to hear is that joy is more reasonable a response to life than misery is. After all, if life is so miserable, why is everybody afraid of dying then? Why do we take our vitamins? Why do we have ICUs? We should be happy to go. But no, we cling. So if life is so miserable, why do we want to survive so much? Life is filled with good and bad, but joy is a more reasonable response for life than misery is. Because being miserable does not help anything. They say that misery loves company, but so does joy. And it's a heck of a lot more fun to be around a bunch of joyful people than to be sitting with everybody who's miserable and gloomy. We owe it to each other, because life is hard, to be as joyful as we can possibly be. That shouldn't be an option, it should be a requirement. Everyone's inspired by the story of Anne Frank. She's a household name. I don't need to describe to you what her story is. Everybody knows that she was hiding in her attic for 2 years from the Nazis who were seeking to exterminate her people. And her diary is this incredible treasure of what life was like during those 2 years. And a lot of it's boring. A lot of it's just the mundane things that happen over a 2-year period. But there's also so many poignant insights. When she was 14 years old, very, very close to when she was sent to the camp, she knew that it was only a matter of days before they were found. She knew that they'd been ratted out, and she knew that they were going to be found soon. And she wrote in her diary these words: "So now I know for sure that the 2 things I require first and foremost are going to be courage and cheerfulness." Cheerfulness. When you're about to go through something like that, she's like, these are the things I require. First and foremost, I have to be brave, and I got to be as cheerful as I can possibly be. That's why her name is a household term for us. She's an everlasting witness that you don't have to yield to darkness. You can take responsibility for spreading light. In the gospel, we're hearing the story of John the Baptist talking to the crowds, and the crowds say to him, "What does God want us to do? What should we do?" And all of the things that John the Baptist tells them are easy things. Share what you have. Keep an eye on yourself for greed. Don't let yourself get greedy. Root for other people. Make yourself the kind of person who wants other people to do as well as you do and isn't trying to compete unfairly with other people. And what it all boils down to is, John the Baptist says, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to make God proud of you. You're supposed to live in a way that makes God look good because God created you. Who created that lady? Whoever did must be great. Look at how good she is. Her maker must be even better. Our job is to make God look good as soon as people hear that we follow God. All of us in our community were riveted last year when there was the unbelievable news that a little girl had been snatched from her family at Moreau State Park. Anybody who was in Glens Falls at the time remembers hearing that and going, "Oh my Lord, what's next?" And the little girl was missing for, I think, 2 days. And I don't think any of us can know what that's like for a parent. We can only imagine it, what it must have been like for them. But anybody who followed the story knows that the abductor was found, as was the little girl, and she was okay. And that abductor is now in jail. There's an organization that has a connection to St. Mary's called Kelly's Angels, and many of you know about that organization. They work to try to ease the burden of families that have tragedy in their life. And so Kelly's Angels reached out to the mom of the little girl who was abducted, and they said, "You guys have been through so much. We want to send you on an all-expense-paid weekend to the Great Escape water park. You can stay in the resort, you can ride the rides, you can just relax and try to just recoup from what you've been through." And surprisingly, the little girl's mom said no. And this is what she wrote back to Kelly's Angels. "Thank you so much for your offer. I want to be a good example to my children. I feel heartbroken for the little girl of the man who kidnapped my daughter. She's a kid, and she did not ask for this, and she doesn't deserve it. I would like you to extend this offer of kindness to her, to show that we were thinking of her." That feeling you have right now, that's the feeling of knowing God is proud. God, you are so proud of a person who would do that. Don't give this gift to us. We've got our daughter back. We're okay. But that little girl, through no fault of her own, has lost her father for the rest of her life. And so give her that prize. That's what it looks like when we take responsibility for other people's joy. So a good question for us this week is, where is God assigning me now to work? Where is my assignment to spread joy in the world? How can I use my life, my opportunities, to make God so proud? What would it look like for people to say, "Whoa, if someone that good exists in the world, then there has to be a God. There must be a God if there's somebody that nice, that kind, that generous." Anne Frank said the two important things during hard times are courage and cheerfulness. Where are we supposed to apply that in our life right now? What in our life needs more courage? And where do we need to exude more cheerfulness? When we know that there's people who are struggling, where are we supposed to bring joy in their direction? One thing we know for sure is that life is hard, and it doesn't get easier by being miserable. If it's just as reasonable to be joyful as it is to be gloomy, there's no reason to choose the harder path. God's in charge of everything, heaven and earth. So let's not postpone joy.